Advice for myself, I suppose, but be a little bit less afraid of the world and maybe we can make it a little bit less scary. Hello, humans. Here's another episode of me on the internet. Thanks for checking it out. So what I want to talk to you about today is the concept of hyper-independence. It is something that I have been pondering because I spend way too much time thinking just limiting my brain. So that's why I make this channel, so someone else has to listen to it too. But I have been giving feedback recently about my hyper-independence, so I guess it's a little bit off-putting. I don't really understand why, but I think the thing for me is that I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a weakness. I think it can be a strength if you're careful with it. There's pros and cons to being hyper-independent and not having independence at all. So what I want to do is get into that. For me personally, I'm an introvert by nature. I was also raised by a single mom, and I was an only child until I was 20 years old. So I spend a lot of time alone, and I'm used to being alone. I am used to watching people, my mother, do things for herself. She was a single mom. She lived alone with me and did everything for us. And she's one of my favorite humans. She's my best friend. She's great. She's so cool. But she's such an inspiration for me, and so I went into my adult life much the same way. I do everything for myself. I, pay my own bills, I live in my own apartment, I do all this stuff, and I always thought that was fine. And I've dated before. I was just got out of 2 years ago, got out of a 9-year relationship. And I was told that my hyper-independence was off-putting, and I didn't understand why. Because to me, it's, and it's a concept that I've talked about on this channel before, but being able to rely on yourself, understanding that you're someone you can count on, that's all very important to me. And I think it is. You need to be able to trust yourself. You need to be able to rely on yourself. You need to know that you can take care of yourself. I do have sisters now, and one of the things that I always tell them is just go out in the world, be able to pay your own bills, and don't be a dick. It's not that hard. That's how you have a good life. 90% of succeeding in life is showing up and having a vaguely pleasant attitude about it. But I think that where I may have gone wrong is perhaps the way I express how much I enjoy being alone. I'm not really sure, but I'm just used to doing things on my own. Even when I'm in a relationship, I'll go to the store by myself. I don't think we both need to go to Costco together. That seems like a lot. I don't know. But one thing that I have been trying to do is learning to ask for help. This idea of asking for help, I think, is something that people that are hyper-independent do struggle with, because there's two options, right? You ask for help and they say no, and that sucks, right? Or you ask for help, they say yes, and then they don't know how to help you. If you've been watching my videos for a while now, over the last year or so, I've been having some difficulties with my mental health. It's something that I've dealt with on and off since I was a teenager, but it's been a long time. It's been probably several years since I sort of had any sort of struggles with my mental health, and it was hard to ask for help. It was hard to admit that I needed to go back to therapy. It was hard to admit to my family that I was struggling, but being open with it, asking for help, talking about it is important. And, for you, there's going to be things that are important you're going to need to ask for help with. And I'm not talking about oh, can you help me move on a Saturday? That's whatever. That's just normal friendship things. If you're the kind of person that won't help your friends move, just help your friends move. Don't be weird. God. But the things that we're going to need help with are going to be emotional things. You're going to need help navigating a breakup. You're going to need help navigating having an ill parent. You're going to, navigate your relationships with other people, and you're going to need their help to navigate that relationship with them. You can't do it on your own. It doesn't work. So when you're very independent, the tendency I find for myself and other people I know that are like this is you just bottle everything up. You don't ask for help. You don't let anyone know what's going on. And then when you are struggling, people don't know why. And then you get a little bit more flack, I guess. People are confused as to why you're behaving the way you're behaving or why you're not coming out and doing things with them. And so something that I've been working on is being more open. I've had a lot of things happen in my past that I've never talked about on the internet. And that I don't talk about with people I know. There are people, I work with people, and I've talked about this before, I work with people that know nothing about me, and I've worked with them for years now. And that's by design, but I don't actually necessarily know if that's a good thing. When you're closing yourself off from people, and when you are emotionally unavailable, or, closed off, then people are going to treat you that same way. And for me, as I've talked about before, community is a very important thing to me. But when I hold myself at such a distance from people I don't know, because I'm very close to the people I do know, like the people that are in my life, I care deeply about, I have very emotionally intense relationships with them, because that's what I want. It's important to me. I foster very caring and devoted friendships, because that's how I feed my soul, right? Is those friendships. But I don't enjoy making new friends, because the vulnerability and opening yourself up and being available is something that I don't enjoy. And I need to work on that. And that's why, you know, I've been thinking about this idea of hyper-independence and how it's affecting my day-to-day life, and how it might be affecting your life. And so while it is good to be strong, it is really good to be able to count on yourself. We need to count on each other, right? I think so much of the divisiveness we see in the world is from people not wanting to count on each other and not trusting each other. And, you know, we see a lot of stuff about the bad in the world. And I think that if we are a little bit more open with each other, if we realize that we are social creatures and little mammals that need their packs, then we can get into a place where we may be able to serve ourselves a little bit better by being more open, and we're able to serve our communities a little bit better by being better citizens and neighbors and all of those things. And I think that that's how we're going to affect change, not just in our own lives, but in the world as a whole, is by being more vulnerable. And I am not an expert on this. I am never vulnerable, except on the internet, apparently. I talk to strangers all the time. But you need to be open so that we can have discourse that is safe, so that we can know that we can count on each other and understand the people in our lives, whether they're co-workers or friends or family. You know, those relationships can be open and they can be more trusting with the right people, obviously. Like, there's going to be people in your life that, like, you don't want to even eat lunch next to, and that's okay. You don't have to like everyone. But if you're like me, you could maybe benefit from letting a few more people in. And this is something that I'm not an expert on. It's something that I'm just now realizing that I need to work on, thanks to my therapist. But, you know, you gotta put yourself out there. And, like, I'm just bad at meeting new people because I don't go outside. And, you know, but I've made friends on the internet, and I think for me it's lower stakes, right? So I have, like, mutuals on TikTok, and we have the same hobbies and all of that. And for me, that's easier because it feels removed from my actual life, which I'm quite protective of, which is odd for a person that makes content that like me. But, you know, it's important to build those connections and to see people out in the world feeling the same way you do. It's why I make content, right? Because there's other like-minded people out there who are exploring the same concepts who could benefit from this, because I watch content very similar to what I make, because it's the kind of stuff that I want to be consuming. But yeah, you just open yourself up, put yourself out there, and be a little bit less afraid of the world. This is advice for myself, I suppose, but be a little bit less afraid of the world, and maybe we can make it a little bit less scary. Alright, my dudes, that's what I have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching through to the end. I really appreciate you. If you like the video, please give it a like. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you struggle with hyper-independence? Are you trying to be more independent? You know, and what's the balance? Where do we find a balance between being unsafe and being too protected, right? I think that's an interesting conversation that I might have to delve into later. But if you do like this content, please subscribe. I put up videos most Sundays. I'm always happy to chat with you guys. I'll link my Instagram down below, and I'll link my website down below. It's relatively newish. I've only had it out for a couple weeks, so there's a few blog posts in there, but please check it out and comment on any of those if you have any thoughts. And as always, I am so glad you're here, and I will catch you in the next one.